Our connection's really slow. Good morning. Sorry we're late. If we could have one technical difficulty this morning, we've had 27. The Spaniels decided to dress up for Valentine's Day, except that Abby jumped out of the chair and Shane is not dressed and their crowns fell off. And, well, it's one of those kind of days. Our internet doesn't like us one way or the other. We've got 3 different ways we can connect and it just wasn't working. Anyway, so I don't know how many of you are friends with Hugh, and I don't think I shared it on my page. But yesterday, he and Charlie did, Charlie, this guy, who's wearing pink. You know, real men can wear pink on Valentine's Day. Hugh and Charlie did a Facebook Live discussion yesterday about VD, and there was a little confusion about what they were talking about, but they finally figured out that they were talking about Valentine's Day. Pookie was a little worried. She thought maybe Charlie had been cheating on her. But anyway, maybe I will put that on my Facebook page so you can all chuckle a little bit if you haven't seen it. So, good morning. Yeah, exactly. Question mark, question mark. So, okay. 2 things. February is Pet Dental Health Month, so we definitely need to talk more about dental disease and dental health. But February is also the month that we celebrate the heart, and you know, whether that's giving our heart to another person, giving our heart to our pets. So Pookie wanted to talk about broken hearts. Hers is not completely broken. It's only partially broken. And I know we've discussed heart disease a lot, but the funny thing is I still get a lot of questions about heart disease and people want me to talk about heart disease. So we're going to discuss it again. So for those of you who missed out on heart disease before or want a refresher, this is hilarious. Yeah, well, you know, Madison had her dental yesterday, 5 teeth and a tumor removed. Ooh, that's a bummer. Hopefully it comes back not too bad. So we'll talk about hearts today. Heart disease is very, very common in the Cavaliers, as you're well aware. It's also common in other breeds. So the mitral valve disease in breeds other than the Cavaliers is seen most commonly as pets age, and it's an old age problem where the mitral valves start to leak. Unfortunately, the mitral valves start to leak very commonly secondary to dental disease. So we can actually put together the 2 things that we're celebrating this month and say that we need to fix both in order to have a healthy heart. We have to have healthy teeth and a healthy mouth. So, but mitral valve disease is generally seen as leaky valves in older dogs as they age. So if I pick up a murmur that a dog hasn't had before, if they come in for their, you know, their 9th annual checkup or their 10th annual checkup, and they're starting to get a little bit of a leak, I don't always get all that concerned. Certainly we want to, you know, listen to it frequently. If the murmur is increasing in intensity, we'll get a chest x-ray to see if there's any heart enlargement, and certainly if they're symptomatic, which would be an increased respiratory rate. We want their respiratory rate when they're resting to be less than 30, so you can count that when they're sleeping. or if they're coughing, particularly when they first get up in the morning and start moving around, those would be signs that your pet is becoming symptomatic. If they can only get halfway up the flight of steps and have to rest, or if you go to take them on a walk and they have to stop and rest, or they don't want to go. Pookie, her murmur is now up to a grade 6. She's got a ruptured chorda tendineae in there. She's on all the heart medications, and there are days when she says, I don't want to walk. So we'll, for instance, at the expo this weekend, we would take them outside to go for a walk to have a potty break. And, Pookie would get 10 feet outside the door. She'd squat and pee, and she'd say, that's it, I'm done. And she didn't want to walk any further. She also does not like to get her feet wet. It was raining. She doesn't like the cold. It was windy. So could have been that too. But she definitely will tell us when she's had enough. And she gets carried a lot more than she used to, and she goes in the stroller a lot more. I do want her to exercise as much as she can to keep her muscles as strong as possible, and also to keep her heart muscle as strong as possible. But I let her set the pace. So it doesn't mean that your dogs with heart disease can't run, can't play, but you do have to let them decide what their limitation is. And if they're having to stop and catch their breath, or they're stopping and coughing, they're done. Pick them up if you can. Mitral valve disease in the Cavaliers, if we're starting to pick up murmurs earlier in life, we're starting to see some of these guys, by age 5, they've got a pretty significant murmur. That's the Cavalier inherited genetic disease. That's different from the normal aging process. So, larger breeds of dogs that develop a different kind of heart disease, which is a dilated cardiomyopathy. Genetically, that's Boxers, Dobermans. We can see it in Greyhounds. We can see it in Great Danes, Newfoundlands, St. Bernards, the bigger breeds of dogs. And they'll generally start fairly early in life with that. We'll sometimes see that at age 4, age 5, because it is a genetic thing. And it's a bigger dog thing. And so instead of getting the thickening of the heart wall and then the dilation, these guys will get a very weak heart wall that's very thin. And when we look at their x-rays, their heart looks like a basketball. It's very round. And those dogs tend to get heart arrhythmias earlier on. Sometimes we pick it up not as a murmur, but as an arrhythmia. And they'll go into something called atrial fibrillation. I'm sorry, I was reading and I got distracted. You know how that goes with me. They'll go into atrial fibrillation. So what that will sound like is we get a very rapid heart rate. The heart rate in a big dog should be 80 to 100. And sometimes with atrial fib, that heart rate will go up 250 to 300. It'll become very, very rapid. And it's a very scattered heartbeat, so it won't be lub-dub, lub-dub. It's lub-dub-dub-dub-dub-dub-dub-dub-dub-dub-dub. And when we feel the pulses inside the back leg, it doesn't match what we hear with the stethoscope, because the heartbeat is so weak that it's not always getting all the way to the back end of the dog. Those dogs will suffer with collapse. And they will have coughing as well. They'll get fluid in the chest, fluid in the abdomen. So if your dog has developed a heart murmur and they're not symptomatic and they don't need to be on medications, there are definitely things that you can do to help strengthen that heart, keep it stronger for a longer period of time, try to put off the degeneration of the heart muscle. The heart muscle really needs high levels of L-carnitine and taurine in the diet. So we find that kitty cats with low taurine diets, very commonly homemade diets, are low in taurine. Commercial diets used to be low in taurine. Now they add it as a supplement for the kitty cats. It is added sometimes as a supplement for the large breed dog foods, which I don't buy those dog foods based on the breed of your dog. It's really just a marketing gimmick. But sometimes they will throw extra taurine or carnitine in there as a supplement. I find that if you feed a meat-based diet, and particularly if that meat-based diet has heart muscle in it, you will get sufficient carnitine and taurine in that diet, but you're getting it from the natural source, from heart muscle. So that's one of the reasons I like the raw diets, because that's what these guys are supposed to eat, and that heart muscle. Oh, good question, Cheyenne. That heart muscle is high in the taurine and the carnitine naturally. So Cheyenne Nieves put a question up: sinus arrhythmia not a concern? So sinus arrhythmia is actually a normal arrhythmia that we'll hear in dogs, and it goes along with respiration. So the heart rate can slow down and speed up based on the respiratory pattern. And it's interesting, when we were at the expo this weekend, I may not take Pookie to any more expos. I felt that this weekend was extremely stressful for her. Even though our dogs, for those of you who were there, you saw they sit up in the back of the booth on a table away from the crowd, so people cannot get back there to pet them. People cannot interact with them other than to wave at them and take pictures of them. And sometimes I'll wake them up so that people can take pictures. But we try to protect them. We used to have them out in the front of the booth, and big dogs would come get up in their face, and people would be petting them all day long, and it was really stressful for them. So we keep them in the back, but those expos for 12 hours, it is constant noise, constant motion, bright lights, cameras, interviews. I mean, it's just a lot going on. It's kind of like if you've ever been in the hospital, particularly in the ICU, and there's just stuff beeping and going on, and people are poking at you and bothering you around the clock. And so Pookie was exhausted, and frankly, on Sunday, she was in such a deep sleep. I went over and I tried to wake her up because somebody wanted to take her picture, and she had her back turned, and she actually had her head, her face buried down into our backdrop behind the table. And when I poked her, she didn't respond. And I had one of those panic moments, and I thought, oh my God, she's died. And I picked her up so fast, and she kind of slowly lifted her head and looked at me like, what do you want? And, then I was like, oh my God, thank God she's okay. But she really wasn't okay. She was exhausted. And I put my hand on her chest, and she was having a serious sinus arrhythmia. And her respiratory rate was actually very slow and very deep because she was in such a sound sleep. And so when the heart rate would slow down with the respiration, and then it would speed up, and it was actually getting so slow that she was probably down to a rate of 40 when it was slow, and then she would speed up to about 85. And so she was having just a really pronounced sinus arrhythmia. But it was a regular rhythm in that I was getting lub-dub, lub-dub. It wasn't all over the place. So a sinus arrhythmia in a normal, healthy dog, you'll just get a speeding and a slowing, but it's not that drastic that hers was. And that's normal. So if you feel that, or you listen to that, Cheyenne had messaged me the other night or morning, I forget when it was, and one of her dogs was sleeping, and she felt that on the dog's chest, and so she said, oh my God, is this abnormal? Do I have to worry? And it's just a sinus arrhythmia, so that's normal. Okay, so things that you can do besides feeding some heart. So we have freeze-dried hearts. At this weekend at the expo, we sold out of our hearts because they make such a good treat. And dogs that have heart conditions, you can either, heart muscle can be a little bit difficult to find to add to the diet, but the freeze-dried hearts work really well because you can feed those as a treat. Dogs absolutely love them. Cats love them too. So for cats with heart problems, you can use those heart treats. My daughter's cat loves them so much, she taught him all kinds of tricks using those treats because he'll do anything. I think he would do backflips for them. So you can feed heart. You can add taurine and carnitine supplements. Most cardiologists for the big dogs with the dilated cardiomyopathy will actually recommend supplementing carnitine. I don't think that most cardiologists use food therapy, so maybe they would be okay if you just said, hey, I'm going to feed some heart muscle because it's got carnitine in it, but they will generally recommend carnitine as a supplement for those dogs. RX Vitamins does make an L-carnitine supplement. I'm sure there are other companies that do as well. CoQ10 at least 1 milligram per pound of CoQ10. So I actually use really high doses of CoQ10 as an antioxidant because it really can't hurt them. If it's too high, they might get a soft stool. I actually give our dogs 100 milligrams of CoQ10, even though they're 15-pound dogs. I can buy pig heart at the local butcher. Yeah, great, go for it. You can cook it, you can feed it raw, however you want to do it. CoQ10 is definitely a great antioxidant for the heart muscle. Omega-3s, you want to get those omega-3s in for those guys. You can do it as a high-quality fish oil. Just watch your sourcing on that. Make sure it's coming from clean waters. The Scandinavian waters tend to be the best for that because of the heavy metal contamination. So omega-3s in high doses, you basically can dose those up to tolerance. What's tolerance? That's when their stools start to get soft. So you can give them once a day, you can split it and give it twice a day. You can feed sardines. That's our natural food source for the omega-3s. Sardines in water we give our dogs very commonly because that's a natural supplement for the omega-3s. And the dogs love it. So the small fish also support the kidneys. We need to love the kidneys as well because they're going to be stressed if we're having some heart issues. If they're having any fluid buildup in the chest, in the abdomen, if they're starting to breathe a little bit more heavily, then we need to give things to drain the fluid. Dandelion greens work great for that. There's a homeopathic called Uva ursi. It's also found as an herbal, which is basically dandelion. It's an herbal product. You can add that to the diet to help drain fluid. You can use things like radishes, carrots, turnips. They also help drain that stagnation and the fluid. So those are some natural ways that we can help treat the heart and make it happy and, have good heart health. I'm sorry, I realize my voice is a little rough this morning. I had one of my insomnia nights, so I think that's what's going on. Okay, so that's our heart love for today. The other heart love we want to talk about is love your pets. And I know there's all those studies out there that say that our pets don't like to be hugged. So whatever it is that your pet likes, do something fun with them today. Shayna's going to get some Frisbee time today because that's her favorite thing in the world. And a little update on Booger, our mini horse. I did get some, I gave him an IV injection of Banamine last night. He was not moving last night when I got home. This morning he was up when I went in the stall. I opened the gate, opened the back door out of the barn, and he went out in the back field. So the Banamine definitely helped. All right, if your dog is battling from damage due to oral tick and flea medication, kidneys and liver, what can I give to assist in the healing? Man, you can't get that stuff out of the body. It is there. It's going to be there for months. Probably a certain amount of it's going to be there forever. You want to support the liver. You want to support the kidneys. The kidneys like immature things, eggs, sardines, seeds and nuts. No macadamia nuts. Seeds and nuts will need to be finely ground. I use sesame seeds. I use almonds. Dark leafy greens to support the liver. Dandelion greens, radishes, turnips drain the liver. Milk thistle, you've really got to support those kids. Give them a species appropriate diet. So I would be feeding a gently cooked or raw diet. All Provide is really good. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are not aware, Michael, who is the chef at All Provide, when you call on the phone, you get David. He's the British. His partner Michael is the cook and the brains behind the food. David runs the office and the sales part of everything. Michael is undergoing a quadruple bypass today. So if you could, put a little extra prayer out there for Michael and David today. Think about them. We wish Michael the best. We want our, which type of All Provide is best for kidney and liver support? Any of them. All three would be excellent. So we really have our hearts thinking about, particularly on Valentine's Day, making Michael's heart healthier. So we want our All Provide to stay around for a long time. Okay, you all have a great day. I'm off to the market to get the food for the food pantry. It's food pantry day, and he was giving me a signal for something. What you doing? He's panning around. He's going to go look at... There we go. There's a little bit of spaniel love going on. Here's Millie. And Wet Scout, he had a bath today. His ears are definitely better. There's the Pooker. And there's our special love, Miss Myra. Oh, and I haven't unpacked Myra's caricature from the other day. I gotta go get that. That's our little Myra shrine with dinosaurs. So we'll be thinking of her today as well. Okay, have a happy Valentine's Day, or happy VD. Whichever it is you're celebrating. Have a great day. I'll talk to you later.